Hey guys, this is Jeff with the YouTube channel, The Wolf of Wisco. I got my daughter's 74 Volkswagen bus. If you recall episode 7, we installed the radiators back in the engine bay. And I had some trouble with the engine bay radiators. Vehicle got hot, the engine got hot, I should say, and had overheating problems. And I just couldn't find a good solution to that problem. So in this episode, I'm going to show you what I did to resolve it, which was putting a large single radiator under the belly, in the frame rails, in between the frame rails, underneath the bus, and that is termed belly mount radiator. Whether driving at speed, whether idling around, it just would not stay cool. It wouldn't stay below 220, 230. It would occasionally drop down, but then as soon as you put any load into it, I would get rising temps on the temp gauge. And I just didn't want to have to deal with a vehicle that was marginal or right on the fine line of cooling or not. So I opted to tear out that system with the engine bay radiators from the back and put them down underneath here. So follow along. That's the rest of the episode is showing me going through the process. Tried to go that route with these cool little radiators down inside here, both sides. It was getting hot. I had temps, you know, creeping 250, one time 270. I hope I didn't blow the head gaskets. So I bought this radiator here from Amazon. It's a Speedway Motors radiator. This is an all aluminum 26 by 19 radiator. Comes with all the fittings to be welded on. There's no radiator cap. Perfect for the application here. And I sent it down, actually I just had it sent right from Amazon to a guy, Lopez Customs in Texas. He did some welding on it, put the outlets in the right place. Let's pull it out of the box, see what it looks like. This is a nice radiator to do a decent radiator system under the belly. So this guy's going underneath. Here we go. Radiator, modified radiator out of the box. I sent it down to Texas, and Steve down there modifies it, and just a custom. Puts the fittings right here. Looks like it's got a petcock on the side. Notice this is that a 3-core or 4-core? I can't tell. I think it's called a dual pass radiator. It looks like there's two 1-inch wide cores in here. Down inside, I can see inside. And this, I'm told, to do a great job cooling the bus. There's no radiator cap down here. And they're at an angle at the back. You can see these are at an angle. Yeah, he tips it down in the front, up in the back. That way these level off. That way you can bring in air from the top, scoop it in, blow it down with an electric fan, and you're not blowing. You want the hot air going down. Some people blow upward, but then you're putting, 180, 200 degree heat up into the bottom of your bus, and in the summer it just turns into an oven. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to blow downward. And I got to come up with all the special hoses, and a lot of folks use it's a little too small, but this 1.25 inch. You buy 1.5 inch aluminum or just regular steel conduit, galvanized steel conduit, and then you can route some of this forward with some hoses in between. So nice little radiator. I think this is was it $299 for the kit? 299 bucks. Quite a bit more than the Dodge radiator, but that's what we're going with. All right, taking the radiator system out of here. It looks wonderful, guys, but it doesn't work. I don't know how guys are making these work. They're claiming they work in the engine bay. So this radiator, this fan's coming out, some hoses. I had a crossover hose. It's all coming out. I'm gonna have to get another radiator, or get a transmission cooler, because this one has a tranny cooler built into it, and my new radiator here does not. Gonna have to do a small transmission cooler here, but we're gonna pull this all out and go with the belly mount. Well, it sure didn't take long to remove the radiator system. So that's the VW Scirocco radiator. That's the Honda Civic radiator. You got the built-in transmission cooler, a couple brackets to hold them up inside the chassis, some crossover tubing, everything needed to put a dual radiator system in the engine bay. It didn't work. So That radiator there is going to go up underneath here. I had saved this location up under here is where the radiator is going to go, right between the thick frame rails. These are probably 4.5 inch tall frame rails, and the radiator is going to sit there at a slight angle. I do have to remove this heater tube. I do have a heater now underneath the back seat, which is right up underneath here, and I was going to run the heat through this tube all the way to the front, and that runs up to the front driver passenger side for the defrost. What I'm going to do here now is cut it off right here. I wasn't using this port. It used to swing back and circle around and get the kind of the back of the bus, so some of this wasn't needed anyway. I am going to chop it off right here so I can get that radiator tucked in as high as I can right here. See how thick this tube is, guys? It's about level with the bottom of the frame here. So this tube's got to come out. That'll be the next step. Pull that out of here and figure out how I'm going to mount that big radiator. All right, get some light on the subject here. All right, let's cut that off. Don't need that either. Oh, I see there was a joint there. Not anymore. There we go. So looking here, let's just take a look at it.
Oh my gosh, just look at it.
Up under here, so now I got plenty of room for a radiator between here. If I'm not using some of these these tubes, these small piping here, like this stuff, this can be removed. That's not being used. That's kind of hanging down right here. A couple inches, that can go. Everything else is tucked up pretty tight. So, and I'm probably gonna remove this out of here unless tubing needs to go there, but we'll get into it. All right, a little overview of what I got so far for mounting the belly mount radiator. So I had this real neat guard here, this metal shield with this louvers on it, and that was the aftermarket air conditioning kind of a shield that came off this massive air conditioning condenser coil unit here that was under there, along with these two archaic electric fans. Before electric fans were really cool. This looks like an old refrigerator motor, which I'm not going to install this, but notice this old shroud here had a indentation stamped in it, and that was to clear the big tube right here for the heater. You know, you put this, it fit in there, tucked everything up fairly tight, but look at how much room there is. That thing's, you know, six inches tall. So what I did, okay, back to task at hand. This radiator is from Steve Lopez down at Lopez Conversions. He does a lot of these, and I'm gonna get this mounted. I'm not sure if I'm gonna mount 4 spots, you know, 2 here and 2 in the front, or mount the rear and just lay a little bit of foam pad underneath the radiator in the front and let it float so it's not constrained. Sometimes radiators, you know, they need a little wiggle room, and this will just be sitting in here. So that's overview. I just got back from getting a little steel down at the local steel yard here. This is 15 bucks worth of steel nowadays. This is thin wall, 16 gauge, 1x1. I'm going to use that as a spacer to space down the entire, you know, bracket assembly. I'm just going to add a spacer right in here by lowering it down to give me a little more room for electric fan. I'm actually got a pusher fan going on the top, and then I'm going to tilt it upward a little more, and by dropping this an inch, it'll allow me to do that. All right, here I just clamped a piece of sheet metal to the table and clamped it down. A couple vice grips. Let's take this over, show you what I'm doing. We got to build a deflector on either side up underneath. I've got this one up in here installed, goes the length, and that keeps the air from blowing out kind of this back hole over here alongside. It's going to force the air alongside on top of the radiator here. So that's the plan. All right, I got these 5-inch tall, this is 20 gauge inch sheet metal, I just got these long strips set in here. I bent a 45 on here. It comes kind of out to the corner here on both sides. I tucked them in from the back side, kind of snuck them in and dropped them down. And I can't go any higher. I'm kind of hitting some of these this tube here that's for the parking brake runs through there, and the parking brake runs through this one. Looks pretty good up here. This is 4 inches of space. I might cut this off. That's the old heater duct to go to the back for heat. I might snip this off because I'm going to put a pusher fan up above pushing down. I opted for a pusher fan instead of a pull. I could have put a full pull fan here, but I want it just to be clear. This will be clear out here so I can just draw air through either way, and then these louvers should be nice. And it protects pretty good. I mean, this is my mount. I ended up sticking a 3/4 inch. This is just a piece of conduit, electrical conduit I had. I snuck it in there. I've got a 1/4 inch gap up to this frame rail. It's mounted rigid. And I put a couple of these rubber coated P-clips right here and just zipped a zip screw into this short, this flange here. That's the mounting flange. There's no other mounting bosses on this radiator, so I just grabbed it with that, and then I jammed a screw here. I had to move it one time, but I put a screw into the center of that pipe, and I got a little spacer here so I could get the pipe in this side and then jam it in this side. I put a spacer on either side, allow me to get that in there, and I put a screw on this side. So it's kind of piloting and holding that. Nothing is holding the front of the radiator. This you can actually lift up like this, but I may put a rubber pad under there just up front and rivet in a little piece of rubber for that to rest on this side, because you can lift that. So yeah, it's gonna contain the air. Now I gotta mount these. I might just tack weld the little tacks on here front and back to hold these shields in. And then I did this is, I think, 7.5 inch wide strip of sheet metal. This is also 20 gauge, and I made it fit right up to the frame rail, right up to the rail of the frame right here on the inside. So the plan is to slide that right up in there, and I think it'll stay. It's got a little bit of a friction fit here, and as you can see, the radiator, just the tip of the radiator is sticking out right here, about 1/2 inch, and then the air can flow up inside here. So from a side view, let's take a look at it. Now I can adjust that scoop wherever I want, but radiator's protected in the box here. I got the 1 inch spacer shim off of here. So this is probably a good 2.5 right here. And I got the deflector or scoop. I'll probably have it flush with this, maybe 1/2 inch down. I don't want it from a front view. From a front view, depends on where I look. I'm trying to get level here. It's just below the axle. And this axle's pretty high, this torsion axle. And I just want it looks like it's gonna gulp a bunch of air. It's gonna jam a bunch of air in there. And obviously you want the air to go through the radiator, not float off to the sides. And I was just thinking about this. There's nothing wrong with, I can move some of these hoses down. I'm gonna get some closed cell foam and pack in some closed cell packing foam in here, these 3 spots just above the radiator. So when air starts flowing in, this is the only place it can get out. It's got to go down or through. So anything I tack onto this sheet metal bracket, this big shroud here, it can just come down as an assembly, and then I could put it back up, and the radiator can be pulled by just pulling a screw on either side, and it comes right out the back here. So fairly serviceable. Yeah, so that's gonna look pretty good. From a side view, it'll, you barely see that. I'll paint it black. All right, got the flange here marked out. I'm gonna bend a couple flaps, bend these flaps outward so I can mount them underneath the frame of the bus. 90-degree bend here on that flapper. There we go. Got that 90 right here. I'm gonna clean these corners up with the old flap wheel. We got the other one to bend here. So I'm gonna grab that on the line. Don't want to do anything backwards here. little scupo. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. So, right there, see I got the flange going up onto the frame. I got a couple zip screws holding it to the frame right on the flange here. And I got it just flush, maybe a half inch below. That's 20 gauge. So now I got the outlet here, inlet outlet. I'm not gonna play games today. We're not gonna twist and bend, and we're gonna clearance this baby and have room to run the hoses wherever I want to run them. I'm gonna run them straight. I want to get rid of this. Yeah, maybe a bit an overkill, but I've been playing around routing crap through this bus, and it's gonna be nice just to run them through here. I'll put a little hanger on them and run the hoses right through here. Quick spray it with some primer and then hit it with black. I got some black. I got a couple choices: truck bed liner, spray can, or just some textured black. I'm gonna paint it black. I'd love to paint it with some textured truck paint just to keep the rock chips off of it. I got some truck bed cheapy liner. We'll just let that dry. Okay, here's a quick picture of the underside of the belly mount radiator. This whole shroud setup was from the aftermarket air conditioning. I welded on, just tack welded on a couple side shields just to help direct air, and I'm gonna spray this thing and using some, it's pretty rusty already, but some rust stop just to spray it and hit it with that and install it. I got a Spall, a high performance fan. This company is a really good company. I think this is 1.9 inches thick. It's a real thin radiator fan made by S-P-A-L, Spall. And you can get this in a push or pull. I'm putting it on the radiator. It's gonna be in the angle on the radiator. It's gonna be in the push configuration. After getting this fan now, I think I would have maybe put it on the bottom side, just so it's easier for me to access from back here. But I'll put it on the radiator, slide it in, and it'll work either way. So. Yeah, so this side I've taken to the sandblaster and got pretty much all the heavy rust off. A little bit of pitting left, but good enough. Let's throw a little more rust stop on here from Ace Hardware. For the final coat on this guy, I use this truck bed. It's truck bed liner coating, just a kind of a textured coat. This thing was so pitted, I just wanted to cover up all the imperfections on the sandblasting and the pitting from the rust. It looks pretty good. So we're gonna go with that. All right, just finished installing the electric fan under here. And it's kind of like a big zip tie where these washers get pulled down over. I'll show it here. Kind of a sandwich type of thing. You pull the zip tie through, snip it off. Okay, and that'll be the top side, and that'll push down on the air. It'll be at an angle like this. Let's go stick it up inside there, see if we got room for it. Okay, I got the radiator tucked up in here. I just slid it right in, and then I lifted the back of the radiator, and I put this piece of conduit. Had a piece of short conduit that could slip in between the frame rails. It wasn't quite long enough, but that's fine. I put a spacer on either side, and to hold that conduit in, I just put one bolt right here. It's a self-tapper. It's about 2 inches long. Goes inside the tubing, the pipe, and it just allows this back end to be lifted up. I got a rubber-coated P-clamp here screwed into the flange around here. It's fairly rigid. The back end of the radiator, this side is where I got the pusher fan pushing through. So air will come in here, push down and go through the louvers out the bottom. See here, but this radiator can be lifted up a little bit here It's sitting on the louvered section, and I don't want it buzzing through and wearing a hole in the bottom of this radiator and this end cap. So I got to put something underneath that. I needed a piece of plastic to go under the radiator. I got this broken dog kennel. I bought a new one for $5, so like new one at a rummage sale. So this old one is gonna go for the scrapyard anyway. So I got to cut a piece out here, and I got a couple of holes are already pre-drilled in this part here. One here, one here. Okay, there we go. Isn't that pretty? Deburr this, and nice piece of slippery plastic. All right, here's that plastic piece. Now I got the radiator right above here. It's resting right here. Got a hole here and here. Got the wings on there to hit maybe a pop rivet, and got the slippery side. I'm gonna try to lift the radiator and get this into position. Now that's sitting right on there. I just got to drill a couple holes, and we're good to go. What that little plastic looks like up inside here. Got a screw in each corner here. One there, one over here. So that plastic just gives the radiator something to slide on, because there's no mount here. It's just gravity holding it down. I also threw a little paint on this thing. I put on the truck bed liner, give it a little bit of texture under here. This is just gonna go right up to the frame on either side. All right, yeah, that's the scoop. Now it kind of looks a little goofy but the radiator's behind here, and I wanted to scoop it into the radiator versus, you know, punching into this wall here. And the thickness of the radiator here, air is going to come up here, kind of scoop right over this rounded edge. So that's good. Feed it right in there from a front view. That's a good scoop. Right behind the axle. It's just down just a little bit from this axle, but it's still higher than the transmission pan. So yeah, that looks good. All right, got a battery here hooked up. Man, it's blowing really good. That's a pusher fan from the top, singing away here. Yeah, sounds good. Let's try something. Let's do a little flow test. Don't judge me now. Don't judge me here. Got a little oily rag we're gonna light. See what happens with the smoke. Try to burn down the place here. Not so much here. Way good right here. I can't see anything coming out the back, but it's drawing it in. I mean, it's really pulling that in all the way here, even through those holes right there. Here's the eBay tank I bought for about $30. I know there are gentlemen who does conversions, Lopez Custom Conversions. I think he welds bung here and then on the front, but I wanted to keep it clean, a little cleaner on the sides here. So I'm gonna mount the tank right here, and that way I can access the filler up top here versus being tucked down here where I need a, you know, special funnel to get in there, and then I can use my overflow tank here with a short hose. Have this bracket. I forgot what this was from. Anyway, I'm gonna use this bracket on the existing mounting holes. Those are threaded. I think they're M6, but I'm gonna bolt it on here and then actually this way, and this will fit. I'll bolt this up underneath here on the side of the bus and kind of put this guy right here. So what I want to do is run a hose. I'll probably put the somewhere in this area here. right here. Marker's not working. And then the outlet's going to come out the bottom, and then that'll be able to one there, one out the bottom like this. And then I am going to thread this internally to 1/8 pipe thread. I used to have, this is 1/8 pipe thread, this sensor. I had an inline sensor and I could use that again, but you know, if I have a splice in the hose, which I probably would, I could use this again. Or I got to plug this anyway, so I may just thread internally and put in the 1/8 pipe with that temp sensor right in this unit. This tank also came from eBay with 2 sizes of fittings. One's like a 3/8 and there's a couple of them here. One's a little smaller, maybe a 3/8, one's a 1/2. That screws on here. It's a straight thread. This isn't a pipe thread on the outside, so I don't know where the seal would be made. You got to put an O-ring down at the bottom there, so bottom's out, but I won't need them, and I'm going to thread that. So I made a couple of these fittings here just out of some 1¼ tubing, and on the lathe here. All right, I got my 2 fittings. One's gonna go here. Now we're gonna give it a shot. I made a little bit of a undercut lip on here, so hopefully I can set this on here just to aid for the weld. And I am gonna cut that with a unibit and see how it cuts. Let's make sure oh yeah. I'm gonna leave it about 1/4 inch from the bottom, so it's got a little bit of weld area here. Aluminum, you gotta clean that out. And I'll have to clean the crap out of the tank. We gotta go another 2 steps here. Let's see. Oh, damn near do it there. Let's give it one more. Okay. Oh, it's nestled in there beautifully. Oh, I could maybe take this to the lathe and cut the undercut a little bit just so it fits in there. I think that's probably what I'll do. Now for the next one. That's on the bottom here. Right here. I guess I could put this thing in the vise, but no, this is easy. Oh, yeah, another one ready to go. Okay. Yep. So that'll do it. One on each location. Okay, I got my fittings welded on, these homemade fittings. My buddy down the road welded them on here for me. And this existing fitting came on the tank. I've got an 1/8 inch pipe tap, 1/8, and it fits in the hole and there's room for the thread. So I think I can tap that down. The hole's probably a little big, but it's gonna work. Okay, radiator's mounted. I zip tied the wires up here. Now to hook up the hoses here, I'm gonna start with this hose, Gates 21191, in the back here. I think that's a nice hose. I had that on the other setup when I had the other radiator over here in the engine bay, but it hooks on here. It's got a flared end on it. That's 1.5 inch flare down to smaller size 1.25 inch. And it kind of, let me get it on here. Here we go. See, it kind of wraps around the engine, and I can tuck that hose up high over the axle here and run it forward. And yeah, that's the plan on that. Here's what I got to work with material here for running the coolant hoses from the engine in the back all the way up to the new radiator in the belly here. I've got some 1.25 inch pipe, the old T here, some more 1.25 inch pipe. I can splice with that. I got 2 of these 21191 Gates hoses. I like these because they're long. And then I bought these 41 inch long corrugated, what is this number? It's another Gates hose on the Amazon, 25269. And those are long hoses. They are only 1.25 inches, which would work if I'm splicing this, but my radiator has got a larger flared end, 1.5 inches, so we'll see if I can squeeze those over if I have to, or adapt. We'll see. All right, let's take a look at this. So going on to the radiator, this hose is flared open a little bit. It's pretty long. It's a, what do we got here? Full length of the hose, but what I'm gonna do is go the straight section right before it hits the corner here, the bend, I should say. I'm gonna cut it off and stick a piece of that 1.25 inch metal tubing I got down there. I'll cut some of that tubing, stick in here, put some clamps on it. Now this flexi hose runs through the frame, over the axle, or the torsion bar tube here in the frame, that large tube, up here over the transmission, kind of right by the transmission, and I've got a tank up there, that coolant tank, and I can splice it right here. Now if you notice, this is the similar hose. It's flared open, flared larger. I don't need that. I'm gonna cut it off right past it here, and I'll splice it together right like that length right there. So this 41-inch corrugated tube or hose, radiator hose, is just about the perfect length. I might be able to sneak it back a little bit, make it a little bit longer, but that's perfect. Let's get to cutting this. Yeah, and kind of the reason I didn't want to just try to put this radiator hose and then splice something in at the other end is these are 1.25 inches. It would be doable, but difficult to stretch that hose over that 1.5 inch fitting. So that's the reason why I'm going to take this hose here, and it's already flared. It goes on pretty easy. Move that on here and cut it right there. Make a splice here. So I've got this piece of 1.25 inch aluminum tubing. I'm going to cut it in half, and I can make a splice here and here to connect a couple radiator hoses. And I'll put it in my lathe over here. I got this old lathe. I can put a couple little grooves on here just to keep the hoses, because I don't have a barb on the end of these. I'll cut a couple grooves in here, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. And then when I put the hose clamp on, it'll help hold retain the hose on. So what I'm going to do first is just cut it in half, and then I'll chuck it up on either end and put some small grooves in there. So this is a cutoff tool. You can hear it. There she goes. All right. Now what I'm going to do is where I got the marks here, I'm going to put a couple small grooves around the outside. Doesn't need much. Move this guy over, and this isn't critical, but just something to give the hose something to bite into. And then I like to knock the corner off so it slides in a little bit easier. Kind of tough to do with one hand here. And what I do then is I grab my file here and I round that off. There. Perfect. Okay, one side done. I'll hit the other 4. Look at this. Probably need as much slack as I can get in the system here, which is fine. So right before the corner here, I'm going to cut this off using a steak knife. So I think that's not working. Where's my hose cutter? There we go. Twist it, cut it. Okay. It's not as seamless as I wanted, but cut that off. Let's get them the same direction. One here, one here. The new fitting, connector fitting we just made. Oh, we made me. Oh, boy, that goes in tight. Might put a little lube on that. I suppose I could peel the stickers off too. Oh yeah, that helped. Okay, now this one. Get those tight together. Boy, that looks great. All right, zip these guys together. Right over the ribs that we sawed in there. We cut a few little, I put 3 grooves on these. And that aluminum is pretty thin. Unlike some of those plastic fittings, it's a real thin wall, so hopefully the flow. You know, I don't really like the corrugated tube for flow, but other guys have done that, I think, and they said it worked fine, so we're gonna go with that. Now moving to the back. A little harder to see up in here. This is where we're going next, is to connect this hose to this one. I got to cut off this big flare end again right here, and we'll connect that with the other piece of aluminum right there. There's a look at how I'm putting these hoses together with this thin aluminum homemade coupler. So you got these little ribs on here, little grooves cut in here, I should say, almost like barbs. Helps that hose retain here. All right, that's what the splice looks like completed. That goes on the driver's side up to the coolant tank up here. And yeah, it's routed, plenty of room above the axle. Everything's cool here. Routes right back, straight shot. It's not touching anything. I'm gonna probably put an old radiator hose around this and zip tie it just so it doesn't rub on anything. Same here. The little piece of rubber hose that I cut off, you know, just back here when I snipped that off, that had the flared end, so I can use that here along with another joint. This is another 41-inch corrugated hose I got from that Gates hose. And amazingly, whatever that part number was, this 21191 here, that's the same hose I used on the other side. But this wraps around up over the motor mount. Put the light here so you can see. It comes up over top of everything, kind of high in the engine bay. I'm gonna run it above the heater hoses here that holds it up. And if I twist this hose down, this is flexible. Maybe I'll go underneath these cables here, pull this under here, but it'll reach perfectly here. And I can put that connector right here. And look at that, no cutting, because you can't really splice these things back, these corrugated. I can't really cut it back. You got to be on the straight section. So this is perfect. So okay, coupler right there, and minimal amounts of splices here. So I'll get this tightened up and let's put some coolant. All right, cooling system done. I'm gonna do a little walk around here. So I do have the tank that I got on eBay for $29, welded on those fittings, Suzuki Samurai overflow bottle. Comes out of that tank. Also, I got a small fitting on there that has a temp sensor. It should start on coolant flow. Comes out of the engine here, loops around, splice here, up to the tank, drops out of that tank, and that's the long 41-incher here, going all the way over the torsion tube, frame section. I put a zip tie, a piece of old rubber radiator hose, just so it's not rubbing on the sharp frame right here, and I'm spliced in here. Same thing on this side, coming back out with the radiator. Another protective sleeve around the hose, up and over here, up and above the axle, and I kind of hit it above I zip tied it by these 2 heater hoses. I got a little room to the frame, and runs right back around into the water pump inlet into the engine. So that's the complete system. It's looking pretty good. Here's the back view of the radiator. You got the louvered fins here. Hopefully that draws air, and the electric fan. And you guys saw the little smoke show, so Let's get it on the ground and put some coolant in this puppy. It's coming down off the lift here. I'm just getting another little view back in here. Here's that tank, and I have it down low enough where I put when I shut the lid, the cap doesn't hit on the hatch opening. There's a little bracket I bolted through here. This is a residual part that I had when I had the bay radiators back in here, which I removed. Now I've got so much room back here on either side. It's all open here. Air inlet, I got air inlet cut here and here that was feeding cold air to the air cleaner intake. It's no longer cold air, I guess, because I really should put a panel right here, because the cold air comes in, you know, up from the external venting that used to feed the air-cooled motor. When I had a radiator in here, you know, hot engine bay air couldn't get back in here because the radiator was getting blown this way. We'll see how it works. Probably just leave it open for the trial run here. But yeah, so this looks pretty good. Got one splice here, easy to access, overflow here. This really should run to the ground so it's not spraying all over everything. So let's put some coolant in this guy. So far that's 2 gallons gone in this thing. Yeah, I'm just taking the coolant. This is great. I got a coolant leak for an obvious reason here. I didn't put a hose clamp on here. The other day I just stuck an elbow hose on there figuring that might work, and forgot to put a clamp on it. I just fired it up, guys. Not cool. I had plugged the lines for the transmission cooler, but I didn't tighten the fastener. I put a bolt in each one. I didn't tighten the hose clamp. I gotta tee those together, or I'm waiting for a cooler to show up. There's a half a gallon of transmission fluid on the floor. Oh, great. I got plenty of fluid. It's just a mess. I basically filled this area up here. When that bolt blew off, we don't have to worry about it rusting, I'll tell you that. Stripping out frickin' lights here. It's not all easy, guys. Sometimes you have a setback from a rookie maneuver here. So let's get the kitty litter. Let's get the kitty litter out by the gallon here. Well, it was like the Exxon Valdez right there.
After a fully laden super tanker hit a reef.
Just spewing the oil all over. We'll let that kitty litter soak in. I'm gonna tee these together so it can run through the pump properly and run through the transmission. Top off the transmission, restart it, get the coolant running through the system, make sure it's bled, and then take it for a test drive. So yeah, I ordered a nice tranny cooler, and I was gonna think about either mounting it back here or getting it up underneath the bus. For now, I was just gonna, it hasn't showed up yet, and I'm gonna just get going on this. So I'm gonna tee those together. I have a old piece of tubing here that I just found in my bin of stuff, and I'm gonna use this to, I'm just gonna clamp it here and run this, loop it back around, and run without a tranny cooler for this trial run. All right, I had a dead battery. I got it started after I, blew all the oil out of it, tranny fluid out of it. Checking the, oh boy, there's the pressure there. That was great. Yeah, this is full. And I probably shouldn't have it topped off like that. It doesn't need to run. It just needs to have, maybe half the coolant in here, so as it flows through, it can aerate all the bubbles out of here. It's not hot yet. But once again, I'm making a mess all over with coolant on the floor, tranny fluid all over the place. But I'm a little concerned on this engine because when I had these when I had the radiators back here in the engine bay, I was having trouble hitting, keeping it to 240 Fahrenheit, and so, and then I put the rear hatch on and drove it, and I got up to like 260, 270. That'll ruin an engine. I could have, I put new head gaskets in this engine on early episodes when I was working on the engine. I could have blown a head gasket, and so I am concerned now that I got the belly mount radiator in here. It's running. I'm bleeding the system. We'll get all the air out of it. I'm gonna monitor here. We got live data on the Autel, and we're gonna find out what we got for coolant temperature right here. We're at 100 Fahrenheit right here. I'm gonna just click that to the top, show that one only, and I'm gonna watch this, and that fan should kick in maybe 185. The electric fan I wired into the Subaru ECU on the output of there's a fan relay, so that'll kick that fan on. I got a single fan, a 16-inch, as shown earlier in the episode here, instead of the two fans that were running. These two fans used to run the radiators in the bay, and I still need to put in a transmission cooler, so I won't be doing much heavy driving with it without a tranny cooler. So let's see how she takes down the coolant as it gets the air out of the system. So I'll keep an eye on it, guys. We're at 105. I'm just really hoping I didn't blow a head gasket. Let's see what happens. All right, been running here about 10 minutes. Coolant temp 156 and rising, 158. And that coolant temp here, once again, this is off the OBD2 port right here. I've got that plugged into the computer right here, the Autel. That's the OBD plug, 158. And in here, 77 Fahrenheit. And so that sensor is incorrect. That sensor is not right. I trust the Autel computer, which goes off of the OBD. And the one that is incorrect is this sensor right here. And I still haven't got the correct, about a new gauge, and this came with its own sensor. So I don't have to guess on which sensor to use. So anyway, we'll be hooking up this gauge. It's got its own sensors. All right, just hit 205 and the fan kicked on underneath, 208. Keep an eye on that, and I'm gonna reach down and I just touched this throttle, and you guys saw that drop. Moly, it went down to 140, 120. Boy, that's bouncing around in there. Before I take it for a spin here, yeah. You can hear the electric fan. She's loud, but blowing a lot of air out. 224. So I got this one hose that I mentioned was going way up high over the axle. So I hold it up high, jiggle it, get all the air bubbles to the top, pull it down. Okay. Air bubbles to the top. Hold this one high. I'm trying to get the air right to this corner. Okay, it can flow up here to the high spot. Now the air is here. Bring it back down. Let it run out here. Oh God, the hose just got hot. It got hot doing that. Yeah, 140. 140. 168, 170. 170 going out of the motor, coming back at 130. 40-degree delta, 40 degrees difference. That's not bad. It's hot. You can see it's all rubbery here. I'm going to zip tie these back up like this, where it should go. I thought I had it bled by playing with that lower hose here, and now she's back to 226. Oh man, yeah, that's warm. Okay. See it with 201 on the temp. She's holding right about 200, a little over 200. I'm gonna call it a wrap, guys. This thing's give her a little throttle pull here. Yeah. Woo! problem. This cruises at 80. 203 on the temp. We're just ripping out here in Wisconsin. I love it. Finally can drive it. That hard throttle pull, it hit about 208, and I let off the gas here, coasting back down. I'm just cruising at 45. She's at 197, and the old radiator system with the 2 radiators in the engine bay would get up, it would hit 240, and as you slowed down, it would continue to climb to 250, you know, and I'm thinking, well, we'll slow down, we'll let the water pump through the radiators. It wouldn't. It would just continue to accelerate on the temperatures and overheat. This one, it'll recover. It'll recover back down where it needs to be. The fan will kick on. It'll cool it off. And now I just got to get this temp gauge to work properly to correlate with the computer with the correct sensor, and we'll be all set. The fan just kicked on as I rolled in the driveway. I'm running pretty flat ground here out in Wisconsin. You know, I'm out in farm country here. Dairy farms out here in western Wisconsin. I thought I'd do a little video on the engine load. It's pretty flat, a little bit of rolling here, but say I'm doing about 50, let me get up to 55 miles an hour. Running right at 2,000 RPM, 55. Engine load about 20%, 18-20% up top there. It's averaging around 18 to 20%, which isn't a lot of engine load to push this big bus around. My coolant temp is holding about 208. That's about as high as it 206. Not bad. And then it seems like when I'm cruising it gets higher, and if I slow down the electric fan can catch up. I might work on the ducting a little bit underneath to try to capture it. I don't have it totally sealed off around the radiator, and I think some air is escaping around the radiator versus being pushed through the fins of the radiator. But not bad overall. I'm pretty pleased with this. To help get the radiator to cool more efficiently, I've got some holes here. So as the air gets scooped in the front, it can leak out here and through these gaps in between the body and the frame and not go through the radiator. So I bought this foam. You can almost use a swimming noodle, but this is a foam for insulating water pipes. This is 3/4 inch ID for the pipe inside here, but it's about 1.75 inches. And I'm gonna cut it into strips right here and wedge it up between the frame like this. And I'll cut it off right here. And I'm gonna do that on every single area here on both sides. I might need to get one more noodle here. I just thought I'd try it out and see how it goes. That worked out really well. You got that foam tucked in here, and it kind of locks right in the ribs between the frame and the body here. And I went from, where the radiator ends to the front here, so no more air can escape. So when it comes into this cavity here, it's got nowhere to escape out the sides here anymore. It's got to go through the radiator and downward. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Just a couple things before I ended up here. There's a couple companies out there that do sell a dual radiator system for the engine bay. They have complete shrouding around their radiators. That would have been possible for me to do, but I just wanted more capacity. And also, when those radiators are blowing hot engine air into the engine bay, that engine bay got pretty hot, extremely hot. Now when I go down the road, I'm driving down the road, I've got the belly mount radiator. I can go back, open up the hatch, and it's fairly cool back there because all of the radiant heat is coming off the belly mount radiator. It's not being pumped right into the engine bay. So there's a couple good pluses there. Plus the volume of the system is larger with this belly mount radiator. Follow along, guys. A couple more things to finish up the build is I do have next episode coming up in the next couple episodes. One is going to be the transmission cooler install. Another episode is a pretty cool little buzzer light for the over temp indicator. So my daughter doesn't have to read gauges. She can just wait for the light to come on. So follow along, guys. It's been, this one was a frustrating situation. But now that I've remedied with the belly mount radiator, spent a little more time, money, this thing's drivable and reliable. Thanks for watching, guys.